So, good evening, and my name is Irene, and today we will be reading Finding Fizz. But before we do that, we have a special guest in the background, my little sister Elia. Elia, say hi. She's hiccuping. Anyway, let's get started. Chapter 1. I've never noticed what fat ankles you've got, Jack said. The rest of the gang laughed. Carly could feel her face going red. She shouldn't have worn a skirt. She didn't like skirts anyway. But when Jack said, "Let's all wear skirts tomorrow," they just did. Carly forced herself to laugh with the others. Their teacher, Miss Fenn, called them the Funny Five because they were always giggling, and they called her Miss Piggy, but not to her face, of course. So this is the Funny Five, and this is Sam, this is Suze, this is Carly, this is Becca, and this is Jax. They had secret nicknames for everyone, like Mo-P Mo for Maisie, who used to be in one of the gang until she went blubbering to the head teacher. All they'd done was stop talking to her. It had only been a bit of fun. Now they were poking fun of Carly's ankles. Jack was the coolest girl in the school, with sleek black hair down to her shoulders. She was also the best-looking girl in school, and everyone knew it. Carly wanted to go back to wearing trousers, so no one could see her ankles anymore. But then everyone would laugh at her for trying to hide them. All she could do was wait for the teasing to stop. In Jax's gang, someone was always being teased, and when it was your turn, you just had to put up with it. Sooner or later, Jax would get bored and start picking on someone else instead. But this time, the teasing went on, and Carly found it harder and harder not to let it get to her. Finally, she did the one with Jax. Simply couldn't stand. She got upset. She called her a crybaby. Then they stopped talking to her altogether. They passed notes to each other in the class, leaving her out. They whispered things behind their hands, and wiggled and giggled. So this is Jax teasing one of her friends in her gang. When one of the notes fell on the floor, Carly picked it up. Suze had drawn a girl with tree trunks for legs. Sam had added a green branch to one of them, and Becca had put a bird's nest on it. Jax had written tree trunks at the bottom. They had given her a nickname. They weren't supposed to do that to someone in the gang. Nicknames were only for sad losers outside it. Carly was shocked and hurt. She wanted to go off on her own and hide. Somehow she got through the rest of the afternoon, but when the bell went, she still had to go home on the same bus as Jax and Sam. Perhaps she was imagining it, but it seemed as if everyone stopped talking when she got on the bus. So this is Carly entering the bus, and she's feeling really bad. As she brushed past a boy in her class, he yelled, "Ouch! I think I've got a splinter." All the kids laughed, even some that Carly hardly knew. Her so-called friends must have told everyone. her so-called secret nickname, and now the whole school was laughing at her behind her back. Carly's face felt hot. She sat bolt upright and stared straight ahead until the first stop. Then she got off to walk the last mile home. Instead of going in right way, Carly slipped in the alley behind her house to try and calm down. She didn't want her mom to see she had been crying. It was then she heard it, a whimper like an animal in pain. Putting her bag on the ground, Carly bent down and very gently patted the hedge. Chapter 2. When she was little, Carly had been mad about dogs, but her mom had always told her to stay away from strays, unless you knew an animal well. She said you can never tell whether it might bite. The little dog lying in a heap under the garden hedge was in no state to bite anyone. Carly reached out to stroke him slowly, letting him see and smell her hand first. His body was so thin she could see the hard ridges of his ribs under the wiry brown fur. She took off her sweatshirt and spread it out on the path. Then she slipped her hands under the little stray dog and lifted him gently off from under the hedge. She put him on the sweatshirt and wrapped him up in it. Carly's mom came out of her study as soon as she heard the back door. "I've just had a call from Miss Fenn. She's worried about you." She stopped. "What have you got there?" Carly showed her. "I found him under our hedge," she said. To her surprise, Mom didn't get cross. She had picked up a stray dog. "Poor little thing," she said. "He looks as if he hasn't eaten for a month. Let's see if he'll take a drink of water." Carly sat on the floor beside the dog while her mom filled a shallow dish from the kitchen tap. At first, the little dog didn't seem to be interested, but when Carly dipped her fingers into the water, he licked it off, and then suddenly he seemed to notice how thirsty he was. He pulled himself up and drank straight from the bowl. Carly's mom found a cold sausage in the fridge. She chopped it up with some milk and the little dog ate it hungrily. As soon as he had finished, he lay down and shut his eyes. He seemed to be worn out by the effort of eating. Carly's mom said he had probably just got lost. He was hungry and tired, and maybe also sad because he was missing his owner. So this is him asleep next to his bowl that he ate his sausage from. "He's lost his Fizz," she said, stroking his side with her finger. "A bit like you, Carly." "That's what Miss Fenn was phoning about. She noticed you don't seem to be your usual happy self at the moment." "Actually, I've noticed that too." In the excitement of finding the little dog, Carly had forgotten about Jax and the gang. She didn't want to tell her mom about it because it was only a bit of teasing, and people should be able to handle that for themselves. "It's not a good idea to bottle things up," her mom said. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but you should talk to someone. It'll make you feel better." Carly shrugged. Taking the little dog with her, she went to lie down on the sofa. She curled up on her tummy, warm and heavy. She gently stroked his back until he fell asleep. "What's the point of talking?" she said softly. And then she told him everything. When she had finished, he let out a sigh. That's the way it is in Jax's gang, she said. If you're the one that's getting cut out, you just have to take it until it blows over. Except it still hadn't blown over with Maisie. She had blubbled, and they had never let her back in. Now Carly had blubbled, and maybe they would never let her back in either. Chapter 3. So we're going to stop here, and I hope you liked this book. I also want to stop here because it's a really long book, so maybe in the next video we can continue at chapter 3. See you next time on Irene's Book Club. Bye!